Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Solidarity Lowell's general meeting for October. And if we all don't know the date, I promise it is the 25th. Let's see. So on our agenda, we are going to talk about Solidarity Lowell, do brief intros. Then we're going to move into committees and allied organization updates. Tonight, specifically, we're highlighting Lowell Lines and 350 Mass. Then we have at 6:10, we have Lowell City Councilors. We have Councilman Drinkwater here with us. And then we're just going to do a wrap up and talk about our next meeting. So guidelines for the virtual meetings. For managed participants, that's at the bottom. Raise your hand or type an asterisk into the chat if you want to speak. And then the stacker, who for now is D, will pay attention to the order and unmute you in turn. Use stop video if you need to take a break, and then start the video when you're ready to return. Step up and step back. So step up if you haven't spoken, step back if you've spoken a lot. And just as a refresher, this meeting is being recorded, both audio and spoken. So moving forward. Okay, so what is Solidarity Lowell? Solidarity Lowell is a volunteer-based group of community members of Greater Lowell working towards social justice by defending the human rights, dignity, and equality of all persons against all forms of hate and discrimination. With all in-person events on hold, we hope we can bring people together virtually to come up with ways to pursue progressive issues in this time of social distancing. The Solidarity Lowell Coordinating Committee is your elected team of volunteers running the meetings, organizing events, disseminating relevant news, and sharing calls to action. More volunteers are always welcome. And I'm going to second and say more volunteers are always welcome. So, Progressive Mass. So Solidarity Lowell is a chapter of Progressive Massachusetts. Interested in learning more about Progressive Mass or joining one of their committees, let us know after the meeting. And as a highlight, Progressive Massachusetts is coming up with a new digital engagement committee, and they are looking for volunteers, specifically wordsmiths and graphic artists, because that is just to create information and creative visuals for their digital outreach issues. So the social distance hour, quarter hour, introduce yourself. So again, my name is Caroline. My pronouns are she and her. I currently live in Centerville, and my favorite snack food is anything with chocolate in it. So I am just gonna see who I see first, and I'm gonna have Marissa start.
Hi everyone, I'm Marissa DuPont. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I live in Pawtucketville, and my favorite non-dessert snack food is popcorn. Air-popped popcorn, not the kind that you microwave. I'm a snob about that stuff.
Steven, do you want to go next?
Yes, I guess I will, if I can figure out which buttons to push. Steve Malagodi, I live in downtown Lowell, pronouns he, him. And I'm a volunteer with 350 Mass Lowell Node. I will be speaking briefly later about the ballot initiative. My favorite snack food, probably idiots.
All right, thank you. Chris?
Okay. Hi, I'm Chris Opperman, downtown Lowell. My pronouns are she, her, hers. My favorite snack food has to be cookies, any kind of cookies, but particularly chocolate chip cookies, who I had never heard about until I came to this country, and they quickly became my favorite.
All right, Joe, are you ready?
I am ready, yes.
Okay.
My name is Joseph Boyle. I'm a coordinating committee member here at Solidarity Lowell. My pronouns are he, him, and I live in the Lowell Highlands. My favorite snack food, I'm going to say deviled eggs. And I can tell you, I have been missing serving you guys deviled eggs just as much, I'm sure, as you have been missing having them.
All right, thank you. Amy and Ryan?
I do miss Joe's deviled eggs, by the way. I don't. So my name's Amy. I live in the Acre. My pronouns are she, her. And my favorite, I don't know if I call this my favorite, but just the other day, I discovered Cookie Monster in Burlington, which is these gigantic homemade cookies, ice cream, sandwiches, and it was just utterly amazing. So that might not be my all-time favorite, but it is my new favorite.
My name is Ryan Hammond. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I live in the Acre. And my favorite snack food would be the old style licorice made with authentic licorice root that you can only get from Australia because apparently the heart wants what it wants, and that is self-destruction. That stuff is bad for you.
All right, thank you. Dee?
Hi, Dee Halzak, she, her. I live in the Acre. My favorite snack food is probably a nut mix of some sort, especially if it's got almonds or chocolate in it.
Derek?
Hi, my name is Derek Kotzer. My pronouns are he, him. I live in Lower Belvedere, and my favorite snack food is nuts.
Ooh, nice.
Oh, hello, Derek.
Hi.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Councilman Drinkwater?
Evening, everybody. I'm John Drinkwater, one of your city councilors here in Lowell. He, him pronouns, and I live in the Belvedere neighborhood. And I'd have to say my favorite snack food is toasty Cheez-Its, which I think we could just go ahead and just make those Cheez-Its. They don't have to be like a little niche anymore. Clearly, toasty is the way to go. So I would support just making the transition to toasty being the baseline.
All right.
Fair.
Paul?
Hi, I'm Paul Gadet. My pronouns are he, him. I'm representing Merrimack Valley Project. I live in the Highlands near Tyler Park. My favorite snack is potato chips, all kinds.
Nice. All right. Rick?
My name is Rick Golden. I live on Christian Hill in Lowell. He and him. And my favorite snack food is kale. I just spent an hour and a half doing what may be the final kale harvest of the season in my garden. And then another hour and a half cleaning and cooking it. And I'm exhausted. And hopefully I got all the caterpillars.
Oh. I hope so too. Sam?
Hi, I'm Sam Francois. My pronouns are he, his. I live here in downtown Lowell. My favorite snack, I think I'll copy you, Paul, and go with potato chips, probably like the Cape Cod kettle chips.
All right. Susie?
Hi, everyone. My name is Susie Chun. My pronoun is she, her. Where I live is South Lowell, and I am representative of CNRPA and CNRPO Women's Affairs for Fighting for Democracy, as you may all know. And my favorite snack food is Pringles sour cream, favorite flavor. Thank you.
Oh, Pat?
Yes.
Perfect timing.
I finally learned how to show myself on this, and I lost my password, but I got it all together and I'm happy to join. Hi, everyone.
Hello. we are doing introductions. So name your pronouns, where you live, and your favorite snack food.
Okay, my name is Pat Vondel. I live in the Pawtucketville section of Lowell. I am a he, she, her. No, wait a minute, she, her. I'm a little confused on that, but you got it. And my favorite snack food, oh, God save me. I love great cheeses, olives, and crackers.
Wow. All right. So from looking at the list, I think we got everybody. So I'm gonna move on. Let's see what we have. Ah, there we go. Okay, so this is one of my favorite slides, celebrate the victories. So quickly, we're gonna do Lowell's performance on the census. Joseph, could you give us a quick overview on that one?
Yes, Lowell vastly exceeded expectations on this year's census. Obviously, worries about an undercount in this community, especially where there's lots of language barriers, where there's a lot of there's a lot of low-income people, meaning resulting in a lot of transiency between residential units. It was going to, and the fact that it had to be done in this crazy year of 2020. A census follow-up program being done in starting in August, which was supposed to be done in April, and Census Day is still April. Trying to catch information about where everybody was living in April. There are usually serious undercounts, and it was expected this one would be even worse. But Lowell had a remarkably successful follow-up, non-response follow-up program, getting back to the residential units that didn't fill out a form or do it online. And we actually finished our non-response follow-up operation in Lowell weeks earlier than it was predicted. And Lowell has succeeded in enumerating 100% of units. That doesn't mean they enumerated every single person. There would have been a lot of units where all they managed to do was get a population count, like from a neighbor. But in terms of there being the actual population count, there shouldn't be really a significant undercount. Now, the drawback on that is when not enumerating all of the persons, that means they didn't get 100% in terms of their in terms of like racial and age and demographic data and the questions that were asked on the form. But you know, we're not complaining. This is much better than anybody thought it was going to be. And I really have to give a lot of credit to the prep work that was done by like the CMAA and was it Lowell Vote, Lowell Counts? Something like that. Anyway, they seeded the ground. There was a lot more knowledge about the census than there usually is out there, and that no doubt helped a lot with the non-response follow-up operation. People were actually opening the doors. I worked here in Lowell. It closed early. I ended up working in Worcester for a couple of weeks because they were so far behind us. They were sending people from Lowell to other parts of the state. That's how good a job the census operation did in Lowell. So yeah, I'm counting this one as a victory.
Thank you for that. I'm going to talk quickly about the Citizens Advisory Committee to the Lowell Police Department.
Yay! Okay, sorry.
So this was a committee that was established based on a motion brought forward to City Council in June. And this, the Citizens Advisory Committee, the process for getting people onto that committee started in July. They have finally wrapped up, which is super, super, super exciting. And the plan is to start these meetings in November. The aim of the Citizens Advisory Committee to the Lowell Police Department, very similar to the title. It is people in various sort of pieces of the city. So there were some that were faith leaders. There's spots for students, both high school and college. There are 9 seats on the committee. Most of the committee meetings are going to be open. There may be some that go into what is considered executive session. That is to be determined based on whatever issues are brought forth. And this committee is specifically designed to work on issues that the Lowell Police Department can change. So it's not necessarily all the issues in Lowell. That is something separate that we'll talk about a little bit later in today's meeting, but this is specifically issues that have a direct link to the police department. So for instance, neighborhood presence of police departments. You know, do we want another neighborhood police department in, you know, this part of the city? Do we not? Those very specific direct things. And so I will say that, again, they are hoping to wrap up and start in November. And there will be more discussion and more talk through City Council, and all of these meetings, the public meetings, will be broadcast on the Lowell City website that lists all the open meetings. And the theory is that it'll be similar to how the City Council meetings are run. So it will either be completely online or simulcast, so that everybody is able to go and not worry about social distancing and all of those issues. So that's my quick update for that one. I'll dive in a little bit further when we talk about the other committee that has been created after this one. Does anybody else have any victories? Other victories?
I'll speak up. This is a small one. Merrimack Valley Project's been doing voter registration. We had 2 weekends at St. Patrick's Church in the Acre. After all services, we tabled in the back of the church. We've got a handful of registrations, but mostly it was great to have it announced in the bulletins and from the altar, the importance of voting.
Excellent.
Dee, is there anybody else? Okay.
I don't see any.
Okay, thank you. Where's my... There we go. All right. So election subcommittee, that would be D.
Okay. Well, we've endorsed Teresa English for the 22nd Middlesex District, which is in Billerica. And you've lost my slide.
I have. I found it.
And so the information on joining her campaign is in the chat, and there will be an event with Ed Markey on Monday or Tuesday, because the 27th is Tuesday. Anyhow, there will be an event with Ed Markey, so he's supporting the campaign. And since we've endorsed her, we encourage people to join the campaign directly for events. Lowell Alliance and CMAA and Lowell Votes are doing phone banking. I think the next one is Monday.
And put it in the chat.
Okay. And the Ed Markey event is on Monday as well. So anyhow, we encourage people to join the events to support our endorsed candidate. She's progressive. She's one of the co-founders of Progressive Billerica. So anyhow, we encourage you to join that. The other big thing that's happening is some of you may be aware that there have been announcements of trainings across the country online by various organizations, one of which is Protect the Result. The idea is to have people ready to be out in the street should there be an attempt to declare a winner before all the results are counted, or to actually declare a certain person a winner before it's really true. And this started because people were concerned about a possible coup, which is not really, it wouldn't look like what it would look like in other countries. But Stephen Zunes, who's a political scientist, did some research on something like 12 coup attempts that have happened over the years in other countries, since we don't have any experience here with it, and found that of those 12, 8 of them failed, and looked at what happened in the ones that failed, what has to happen. And one of the big issues was mobilizing people to get out in the streets in force. And so there are trainings going on across the country. I have taken one, Joe will be taking one. In the event that there needs to be a mobilization, we would be hosting an event here in Lowell just to get people out in the street. These are designed to be nonviolent efforts. So if you have a chance to take a training, I encourage you to take one, because it specifically covers how to do it nonviolently, how not to react. One of the biggies is don't run. And another one is, one of the ways you stop violence is you either slow things down by moving very slowly, walk away, don't run, or you sit down. It tends to stop violence from occurring. We hope it won't be necessary.
Sorry, I missed that. Could you say it again?
Which part?
Oh, sorry there. I'm just turning off that phone. I apologize. I'll mute myself.
Okay. I don't know where to start. Okay, to stop violence, you slow things down, or you sit down. There was an anecdote in one of the trainings about George Floyd protests happened, I think, in Philadelphia. And this group was aware of the slowdown issue. And so when the crowd started moving forward, they started chanting, walk slowly, walk slowly. And it's very easy to get a crowd to follow you. They're very suggestible. So once 2 people started chanting, the rest of the people started chanting, they started walking slowly. It was the only part of the demonstration in that city where people were not hurt, because they knew to slow things down, and in some cases you sit down and then it just stops things. So learning things like that is one of the things they're encouraging people to do. The idea is be ready, so if we have to be out in the street to stand up against misbehavior on the part of the incumbent, that we're ready to do it quickly. Hopefully we won't need to, but if we wait until the last minute to find out how to do it, it will be too late to do anything quickly.
Steve, did you have a question or comment? He's got the.
It's not really important.
Okay.
I do.
It's funny, but not important.
I have a question.
Okay.
When you talk about, getting out on the street to mobilize, I'm just wondering where. I was talking to my niece and nephew today, and they said they feel like we should all go to Washington, D.C. to mobilize. And I just wondered, when you were thinking about on the street to mobilize, where?
Well, if people want to go to D.C., that's up to them. We're only talking about what we can do here in Lowell.
Okay.
The question right now is, where would we gather in Lowell? We know where the traditional spot to gather is, and that's at that island with the monument in front of City Hall. The recommendation in some groups is not to go to where they expect you to be, but where else we would go in Lowell, we haven't figured out yet. The other thing is, when would it happen? Nobody knows exactly when it might be necessary. It could be as early as 5 o'clock on the day after the election day. It could be 2 weeks later when the results finally start getting settled. It could be later than that. It could be earlier than that if 45 decides to declare himself a winner before he should, or when he isn't. So just pay attention to our Facebook page and try to stay in touch with each other. In the worst case scenario where the government tries to shut down the internet, what we have done is downloaded our list. And if you want to make sure you're in touch with us on something like that, make sure you get into our membership list soon, so that if there's any chance of that, we can reach you even if the internet is down. We don't expect that to happen, but trying to plan for all eventualities.
All right. Dee, thank you for all of that information. I'm just going to move us to the next slide with just due to timing. So let's see. So Chris, are you able to speak to this?
Well, it's really very brief. Yes, I am. The Immigrant Rights Subcommittee, our local committee, is of course still on hold. So we're still following. Don't lose my slide on me. We're still following the statewide activities. The Safe Communities Act, nothing much has changed since last time. It's still waiting to come to the floor for a vote. What's new is that there are now phone banks. I attended a few to voters, which will encourage voters to get in touch with their representatives to ask them to vote for the passage of the Safe Communities Act. There is more phone banks being planned, but the next one is this coming Tuesday, the 27th, 6 to 8. And once I'm going to put the link to that in the chat. So that's one phone bank I attended. I guess I'm gonna have to take a little drink or something. I knew this would happen. It's on Tuesday. Wait, sorry. Similar to driving families forward, the drive to get driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants is still a work in progress. There are bills in front of the legislature, but they haven't come to the floor yet for a vote. We're not sure that they will come there in this session. The Driving Families Forward is really organizing most things on Facebook. So I have the link, the Facebook link, where I'm following things there. It's less of an urgency on that one, since there's most of the actions are actions in person at the State House in Boston. It will all be listed on that page, but phone banking, which is, and I think also that the Safe Communities Act will also have text banks. All of that will be announced. I'm putting the links in the chat. They will also get into the minutes then, and everybody can see them. Any questions, you can always contact me, chris@solidaritylowell.com.
Great. Thank you, Chris. All right. So next one is
Caroline. Steve Malagodi had asterisks in the chat.
Okay. Thank you for catching that. Steve?
Don't worry about it. I'll get to it later.
Okay. So the next one is Merrimack Valley Interfaith Sanctuary Network. Marissa?
That's me. Yep. So hi everyone, I'm Marissa. I'm the volunteer coordinator for the, I'm the representative for Solidarity Lowell for the Merrimack Valley Interfaith Sanctuary Network. If you haven't heard about us, what we have done is created a sanctuary space for someone who is at risk of deportation and or needs sanctuary. And we currently have a gentleman staying with us. His name is Marius. He is from Togo. And we have agreed to provide him with about $500 in living expenses every month. So we need all the help we can get in terms of raising funds for him. So we are holding a fundraiser on, I believe it's a Tuesday, December 15th at 7 p.m. It'll be on Zoom. If you've never heard him speak, he's going to be telling his story, specifically focusing on his time in ICE detention. So if you've heard him speak before, this will be additional information, as well as, he'll be going over a little bit about his journey from Togo through different other African countries, all the way to Brazil, to Peru, to Mexico, and basically walking all the way that way once he was in South America, all the way through Mexico, and then crossing the border. And then he was in 2 or 3 different ICE detention centers once he crossed the border, and was able to successfully argue his way through that system. And yeah, not to do too many spoilers, but we're hoping that he'll be able to get his green card at some point. But the lovely Trump administration has been pushing that out and changing things, and he had to get a new lawyer and yada yada yada. So anyway, we'll be doing that on Tuesday, December 15th. I don't have a link to sign up yet, but we'll be getting that soon. If you're interested in, if you have any questions, you can always email me, marissa@solidaritylowell.com. Or you can donate. We're always looking for donations at the link on your screen, which is merrimackvalleyproject.com. Just make sure to write asylum in the special notes section so that the money will go towards him. That's it.
Thank you. All right. So next is group updates and announcements. I'm going to do a quick update about Lowell Lines. I gave myself notes, but I'm not sure if they'll pop up. Oh, perfect. Okay, so I was in touch with someone named Oren Selstrom through Mary Torres. And he gave us a quick update of Lowell Lines, which is a group that came out of the federal lawsuit with regard to redistricting Lowell. So the quick summary, and this is from Oren, is that redistricting was a result of a federal voting lawsuit settlement brought by Asian and Latino voters. Those are the titles that the lawsuit uses, not necessarily the persons within the lawsuit. And because of that, they are redistricting the Way City Council and the school committee. So there will be representatives based on the districts, and then there'll also be at-large seats. And pursuant to the settlement, the parties have jointly selected an independent expert, Nathan Perisley, who is not from Lowell, from my understanding. And he will be doing a public virtual event on November 9th, where he will present the first draft. And this is, let's see, okay. So they will make further changes into 2021 with the intention of blending in the census data that Joseph and his wonderful crew have gathered for us, as long as it has been released. And the idea is that the new system should go and will go into effect for the November 2021 elections. So there is much more background information that can be given. This was very the kind of the broad legal technical overview of it. And I do know that there have been many groups involved with this, and there were many groups that not only were part of the lawsuit, but also many different motions within City Council have been made, some accepted, some not, to just emphasize that who we see in City Council and what groups, quote unquote, that they fall into is not necessarily reflective of Lowell, and it is not necessarily the people themselves, but it's more the system and how they got there. So this Lowell Lines and the federal lawsuit was really about changing that system so that the system itself worked better for Lowell now and in the future. So that was sort of that idea to change that, because I know that this is something that hadn't been reviewed or looked at in a very long time. So that's the quick one. I know I have Oren's email, and then I know Mary Torres has been involved in many other groups. And if you want more information, I'm going to ask Amy to put in lawyersforcivilrights.org into the chat. And that is the organization that Oren works for, and where sort of the idea of creating Lowell Lines as a Facebook group and a hashtag started. And they are also the point of contact for anything on the specifically legal side of it. So, does anybody have any questions? Nope. All right. So, Stephen, are you ready for the 350 mass update?
Carolyn, I do have a question.
Oh, okay.
So they're drawing lines there now based on 2010 census data?
That is my current understanding. I don't know if Councilman Drinkwater can speak to that. Okay.
I can. Excuse me. So the Lowell Lines meetings and also the mapping tool that some of you may have had a chance to take a look at or kind of play around with to draw your own districts based on population and even working in demographic data, you know, to try to create the 2 majority minority districts that will be part of the new map. All of that is based on the most recent census from 2010, as well as other things like the American Community Survey, which continues to collect demographic data even after census years. And so far in the process, as you mentioned, there is an independent expert, Dr. Pursley, who's kind of going through this process, working with the plaintiffs and a number of other civic groups that are working on this. And there will be I guess you could say, a first draft of a map that will be, pardon me, based on the 2010 census data. That'll be out for public review and comment before the end of the year this fall. And the concept, I guess, is because we won't actually have cities and towns and states actually won't have access to the 2020 official numbers until about April of 2021, which is really running right up against what is normally the time that candidates would be turning in signatures. Any final changes that are needed based on changes to population or demographic changes to districts would be made at that point, likely in April, as soon as we get the 2020 census data and can kind of overlay it onto the draft map that we have. But the hope, and I know this is Dr. Pursley's hope, is that we can get as close as possible based on the 2010 numbers and only have to make very minor changes once we get the official 2020 census data.
Wonderful. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Anybody else have any questions on redistricting? Okay. Stephen, I think it's you.
Okay, great. Thanks. So I'm Steve Malagodi from the Lowell node of 350 Mass with the Climate Action people. So I'm here to talk about ballot initiative number 3 in the 16th district. But before I do that, I think it's appropriate to have a little moment of topical levity given Dee's presentation. So back in 2000, you all may remember Bush v. Gore, and there was a delay there were problems counting the ballots and all manner of confusion. And I was living in Miami at the time, so I was sort of right in the middle of it, and was there when a group of thugs went actually physically disrupted the counting process at the county courthouse. So at any rate, there were rallies and demonstrations, as you might imagine, in downtown Miami. And at one of those, who should show up but Al Franken? And Al Franken shared one of the best rally chants that I have ever heard. And the rally chant went like this: what do we want? Patience. When do we want it? Now. Come on, that's funny. So yeah, we're gonna need patience, if nothing else. All right, so let's talk about ballot initiative number 3 that's on the ballot in the 16th district, which is Tom Golden's district, basically Christian Hill, Centerville, Pawtucketville, and a bunch in Chelmsford. So the ballot initiative number 3 is a non-binding sense of the voters measure, urging the state legislators to act decisively on climate change. The wording is very simple. It is this: shall the representative for this district be instructed to vote in favor of legislation that would require Massachusetts to achieve 100% renewable energy use within the next 2 decades, starting immediately and making significant progress within the first 5 years, while protecting impacted workers and businesses. So that's a yes or no. Do you want the legislators to do that or not? It is a sense of the voters initiative. It's non-binding. So the problem is that, again, this year, climate legislation is stuck in conference committee. It is unknown, and at this point, looking like that it's unlikely that there will be any legislation on climate again this year. The state legislature has failed to pass any significant climate legislation since the 2008 Global Warming Solutions Act. That's 2008. So nothing really significant has happened since then. So in the 16th district, 350 and some of our allies collected enough signatures, and we got ballot initiative number 3 on the ballot, calling on the legislators to act. We've been canvassing in Centerville, and Pawtucketville for the last 3 weeks. We've done approximately 5,000 lit drops in 3 languages across the district about this issue. We really have been working really hard to get this ballot initiative to the attention of voters. It's been really difficult. All the online platforms that we were going to buy paid advertising, specifically Facebook and Twitter, have refused to run any sponsored ads on climate change. Not just from us, but we're getting these reports from all across the country that you just, no matter how sort of innocuous it is, they just will not run them. So, and of course the Lowell Sun hasn't been cooperative at all. So it's been really difficult trying to get the word out. We have been canvassing and doing these lit drops. We also are doing standouts. So here's our ask on this. We would like all of you who live in the 16th district, of course, to vote yes on 3. We hope that you'll talk to your friends about it and urge them to vote for this initiative number 3, ballot question number 3. And if you'd like to help us in this final stretch, we're going to be doing standouts at the Senior Center during the early voting period, as we've been doing. You can do that at any time by sending an email to lowell@350mass.org. I'll put it in the chat. That's our email. There it is, 350, lowell@350ma.org. Just tell us when you would like to do this. We'll get you signs. We'll get you the signs. Or you can join us specifically on Tuesday, either from 12 noon to 2 p.m. or 2 to 4 p.m. We will be there all Tuesday afternoon. Thursday, we'll be there Thursday afternoon from 2 to 4, or Friday morning, which we kind of think is going to be really busy. It's the last day of early voting before the general election on the 3rd. So Friday morning, before they close, we're thinking we're going to be there from 10 to noon, but we could be there earlier. Again, anytime you would like to help us with standouts at the Lowell Senior Center, please send us an email and we'll work out the details, lowell@350ma.org. It's really important to get this passed in Tom's district, and we would like to see good numbers. It's going to be very interesting to see how many people actually vote on the question, and of course, how many vote yes. And this is designed specifically to send a direct message from the voters to the state legislature, urging them to act. So that's ballot question number 3. We need your help, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Steve, I think it's great that we're targeting Tom Golden since he's chair of that committee. Are you aware?
I'm sorry, Paul. We're not actually targeting Tom Golden. Actually, this ballot initiative is live in 15 or 16 different congressional districts across the state. So it's not, it's not a targeted thing at Tom Golden specifically. But why did we choose the 16th district? Because it's Tom's district. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
That was exactly my question. Was it going to be presented in other districts? So thank you.
Yeah, across the state, like I said, I think there are 14 or 15 districts, including Speaker DeLeo's district.
I just wanted to say, when I got my ballot, question 3 is on the back of page 2. So there's it was a little confusing to try to figure out, what was what, especially with all the different languages. And there's nothing else on the back of page 2 except for question 3. So if you're talking to people from the district, let them know that it might be hard to find it, but it is there.
Thank you. Yeah, of course we don't have any control on how they print the ballot.
Okay, so
I'll say, Steve, have you gotten any feedback about what Tom Golden thinks of this?
Long pause. My impression is that he is not happy that it's there. But that's kind of irrelevant. Again, this was not designed as an attack or focused on Golden. It's not just him. I mean, the entire leadership of the state legislature really is not following what the rest of there's a significant majority of legislators who want to act on climate change, who are in favor of the Benson carbon pricing bill, who are in favor of far more aggressive climate action. They co-sponsored these bills, and yet consistently they can't get out of committee. So it's not it's the fact that the leadership in the legislature is far more cautious and far more reluctant to take any significant action on climate change. I don't know how we're doing for time here, but just for instance, during the regular session, we would often hear from the legislators about how important TCI, the Transportation Climate Initiative, was. Basically, that's an initiative among New England states plus New Jersey and maybe Pennsylvania, can't remember what, basically to tax liquid fuels, so gasoline mostly, gas and diesel. And the legislators were really focused on having this be a multi-state effort.
Stephen?
Yeah, so brief, I'll be brief.
Okay.
So needless to say, nothing happened on TCI and nothing has happened in the legislature. And as I said, since 2008, there hasn't been any significant legislation on climate change to come out of the Massachusetts legislature. What has changed from I mean, how much development have we seen on the worsening climate situation since 2008 that can you think of? And yet still we have no action. So a message, serious message needs to be sent to the leadership of the legislature.
Great. Thank you. I totally agree. I actually did some literature drops, and so that was kind of something I could cross off my bucket list. So that was fun. So I'm going to jump to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force really quick. So this was the other group that has been created from City Council. This one is very recent. And I will say a shout out to DEI, which is a group / organization. They're in the middle of branding and sort of figuring out where they are, who was the main push behind this task force. Their name is also Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And there is a wonderful, beautiful, long story as to how they came up with these 3 words. And it is basically very quickly understanding our differences, embracing our differences, and including our differences. So that is the very quick version. Sue Kim and many of the other founders can say it much more elegantly than that, but that's pretty much it. This also goes back to the theory of making a seat at the table, creating room. So this task force is expanded from the one that is specifically with the police. So this is any issues that affect Lowell citizens. This is a way for them to be put forth in a manner that City Council, as they stand now, and as their governance is now, will be able to take motions on, and things will be created. And so that is a piece of government that I have always struggled with personally. So I'm really excited that this is here, because it's a group of people who are excellent wordsmiths and excellent, you know, they're really good at tweaking the language and making sure it's as diverse, equitable, and inclusive as possible, so that when City Council approves a motion or questions a motion or whatever, it's more on the concept than the legality of it coming before the City Council. Like, every motion legally can come before City Council and be spoken about. So this one is new. I don't have the exact dates. I know this was one that was discussed in October. The job descriptions, is what they call them, are being created and posted to, again, the Lowell government website. And even though it says job, it is a volunteer position, and that's sort of the umbrella term that they use on the website. So I would suggest anybody that wants more information, or, you know, it possibly feels called to do this, to investigate it, to look at Lowell, Mass, their website. And also, as Dee pointed out, there is a wonderful description attached to the October 13th meeting minutes of City Council. So there was, this motion was brought forward there for more discussion and an update, and a document was included with the minutes. So that's kind of a really nice thing about being virtual now, is that, you know, you can look at City Council and read it as you go. So I know that there was some discussion. And this is supposed to, again, be all public meetings. And they are going to work in concert with the Commission for the Police. However, they're gonna, they're kind of get a little bit of a different focus. Sort of the police is like kind of one bubble, and this is sort of the overall umbrella. But again, Lowell Mass would be your, that website would be your place to go look. Also, I encourage you, if you have questions, feel free. There's a great piece on the website that says contact your city council people. So if you have a question, just, send it there. I find that I've gotten a lot of good responses from that. So that's kind of the quick thing. There is still debate about how many people are going to be on the task force. They want it expansive, but not bulky. So there's still some question. 19 was a number that was thrown out about seats, but that isn't official because there'll also be organizations that'll be able to jump in and out depending on the issues. So they're still kind of working on that, which is why it's called a task force and not a committee or a council. So anybody have any questions?
I have something I would like to add.
Okay, great.
And Councilor Drinkwater could probably say more than I could, but in the list of organizations that were outlined as organizations they wanted to see represented on the task force, only one of them was identity-based, and that was CMAA. There's no mention of the Latino organizations in the city, and there's no mention of the DEI consortium. So we need to make sure that people of color are represented on that task force.
I can speak to that if that makes sense at this point. So the task force that was created was actually based upon two separate motions that were filed at the same meeting, one by Councilor Chow, one by Mayor Leahy. The one filed by Councilor Chow was somewhat prescriptive in terms of the organizations that would be represented on this particular task force. The one filed by Mayor Leahy was actually prescriptive in making sure that it was actually comprised of a majority of people of color and also chaired by a person of color. Yeah. And it is a mayor's task force where the members will be appointed by the mayor. So while the guidelines for the task force that was designed by the city manager's office and essentially sent to the council and to the mayor to appoint, did try to include those elements of both. So while it does include 19 different organizations that are supposed to be represented on the task force, the mayor does have the appointments, and the mayor, in crafting his motion, did make it a priority that the members of the council would be, comprised of a majority of people of color. So I have to assume, based on, his own motion that he filed, he'll be working with these organizations to find members of the task force. So, kind of will be in the mayor's hands to work with these groups to make sure that if they're sending someone, that they're, trying to send somebody, representative of the community. So I know those, the mayor will be working with those organizations to try to find those members and get this up and running as fast as possible.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Any other group updates? Paul?
Yes, so Merrimack Valley Project is having its MICA Awards dinner, and I want to thank Solidarity Lowell. This was the ad that was in the program last year, and it's going to go in the program again this year. Thank you. The MICA Awards are to honor community activists, and we have 9 honorees this year in the Lowell area. We have 3. And significant for Solidarity Lowell is that Pastor Peter Lovett is going to be awarded. And he's been our host in our pre-pandemic meeting space, offering his church. And he's been the president of Merrimack Valley Project for the last 2 years. So I appeal to all of you to be part of that Zoom celebration when Peter will be honored, as well as 8 other members in the Merrimack Valley for different kinds of work that they do on social justice. The You need a Zoom link you can get that by going in the chat to Merrimack Valley Project.org, and it'll take you through the various steps of how to just sign up. You can pay with PayPal or a credit card or anything else. And we're offering a $20 gift card if you buy a $30 ticket. If it's difficult, you can always get the Zoom link for a smaller donation of $10. But I'd like to ask very boldly and bravely that each one of us buy a ticket, and because that's what Peter would want. If he doesn't want gifts, of course, for all his good work, but as past president, he wants to see Merrimack Valley get stronger and be ready for the challenges ahead. So thank you, everyone.
Wonderful. Anybody else? All right, I'm gonna go. All right, so this is the meat of the meeting, as they say. So as we've heard, we have Councillor John Drinkwater with us. And I do want to highlight that Councillor Vessa Noon has also been in the background working with us in prep for this meeting. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Councillor Drinkwater.
Well, thank you, and appreciate the invitation to speak on this topic at the meeting tonight. And I realize that housing is an issue that this group has been working on in a number of different ways for a long time, and certainly appreciate the work that everyone has put into it. And more specifically of late on the eviction crisis that I think we're now officially in with the end of the state moratorium just more than a week ago. And I was hoping, I know there's a few different motions that have been filed both by myself and Councilor Noon on the topic of housing. I'm happy to speak on any of them, but I was hoping to kind of work backwards from the most recent motion that I had filed, which relates specifically to evictions. And I know that just looking at the agenda for this meeting for a number of weeks, that members of this group have been advocating for the Housing Stability Act at a state level, piece of state legislation that's very important, which among many things, most importantly, would actually extend the statewide moratorium legislatively, which I wholeheartedly support and think should have happened before we lapsed on it a week ago. What I wanted to do in terms of filing a motion at the council level was find something that the city could do via ordinance immediately without having to go to the state legislature and ask for a home rule petition to be passed in order to do something that via home rule. There are certain things that we can do through ordinance without having to go to the legislature for permission, and therefore would take effect relatively immediately. And in looking what some other cities have done to address this just via ordinance, I filed a motion at the most recent city council meeting a couple weeks ago relative to housing stability notification. And it's based on an ordinance that went into effect in the city of Somerville last year, late last year, just before the beginning of the year, and which was actually just, it was passed unanimously in Somerville pre-pandemic, and it was actually passed unanimously in the city of Boston last week. And to quickly summarize what it would do, right now, within the last week, thousands upon thousands of households, probably more than 100,000 households statewide, most likely were served with notices to quit, which is the first step in the eviction process, where a landlord gives notice to tenants that they're starting the eviction process. What an ordinance relative to housing stability notification would do is require landlords to, at the same time they serve a notice to quit, provide tenants with a list of rights and resources that are available to them. So this includes things like the rental assistance programs that are available, legal assistance for tenants to be able to get a lawyer to go to court, and also would walk them through the various steps of the process within the courts. Because I think one of the scariest statistics out there is that, many tenants receive a notice to quit and they don't even avail themselves of the court process. In fact, they don't even wait until the what is considered the execution date of the eviction. They figure they have no recourse, no chance of actually staying in their home, and they move out immediately. And oftentimes, that could mean anything from moving into crowded housing with friends or family, or to living in a car, or to living in a shelter or without shelter. So at the absolute least, I think it's very important, especially during these times, that tenants are made aware of their rights, of the process that they have in the courts, because right now, roughly 25% of tenants never show up to even their initial court date, which means they no longer have any, they essentially give up the rest of their rights through the court process. So already off the bat, 1/4 of tenants don't show up. And, I know that one of the things that was made available in the governor's relief package for this eviction crisis, which doesn't go nearly far enough, but one of the things it did include was a push towards conference and mediation in the court. So essentially advising judges to, before they move on or allow any kind of execution, to remove families from their homes, the judges had to put the tenants' lawyers and the landlord's lawyers in a room to figure out if there was some sort of resolution that could be reached that doesn't involve removal from the housing. And if they can't reach an agreement in conference with just the lawyers from each side, then they would be required after that to go into a room with a mediator to figure out if a mediator can help figure out some sort of solution that will allow landlords, tenants to be able to catch up on rent without having to be removed. But all of these things that, again, don't go far enough, but that will help some individuals, some families who are at risk of losing their housing, they're meaningless if tenants don't even know that they have a chance to stop this by showing up in court. So a notice right off the bat that will let tenants know how the court process works, what's available to them in the form of rental assistance, what's available to them in the form of legal assistance, will help people. Again, it wouldn't accomplish everything that the Housing Stability Act could accomplish at the state level, but it is something that has been proven that cities can actually enact on their own without state legislative approval. So that was something I filed, asking the law department to draft an ordinance that the city council could then vote into effect, essentially as quickly as possible, make this a requirement for landlords to be able to provide to tenants. That was filed a couple of weeks ago. The city council meets on Tuesday. Unfortunately, there was no response to that motion that was included in this week's city council packet. The way that this works is that if the city manager and law department ultimately do opt to draft an ordinance, that the council, they would have to give initial approval, and then 2 weeks later there would be a public hearing. Then at the date of the public hearing, we could then take a vote to enact that. So in the best case scenario, we'd still be a month out from any relief in this form from for tenants, which every day goes by, we're missing people. We're missing people that could potentially be helped by this. So I have spoken to both the city manager's office and the law department about this. Gave them the information, let them know that this is something that Somerville and Boston have moved on, and I'm hoping we can quickly. But this might be an area where I think, if people feel that this is something that you can get behind, that you care about, I think by weighing in, with my colleagues on the council and with the city manager would be helpful, just to hopefully urge everyone to move on this quickly. So I can definitely pass along any information after this meeting that might be helpful in that regard. I really do feel like this is something, again, that it doesn't, it's a very small Band-Aid on a very, very large problem. But through my research and looking at what other cities have done, it's probably the best Band-Aid that we have that we can just, enact via ordinance without having to go through that home rule petition process, which, especially at this point with an extended legislative session, I don't think there are any home rule petitions even moving. So that is the summary on that one. I realize I've been talking for a little while. I'm happy to talk about other aspects of housing, but I think I'll maybe stop there just to see if there's any questions or discussions on that motion, or if someone wants to kind of send us in another direction as it relates to housing. Happy to talk about it.
It looks like Steve has an asterisk in the chat. Steve, did you have a housing question or point?
Yes, I did. Sorry, it takes me a minute to get my mic unmuted. So, Councilor Drinkwater, really appreciate your efforts on this at the council. But from what I understand, your motion would require landlords to advise tenants where they could go for help. My question is, what good is that if when they go to these places, like for instance, like the raft program that the Baker administration has, what good is that if they go to this program and there's no resources there to help people? From what I can read in the Boston Globe article, I think was from today, people file these lengthy applications and then they don't hear anything for a couple of months. Months go by and they don't know, they hear nothing. There's certainly not enough money in the RAFT program. There's $65 million, I think, and they've estimated that that's 1/4 of what the demand is statewide for housing relief. So my question is, I guess my question is, what plan does the city have to deal with, actual people being actually evicted and having nowhere to go? In Miami, we expect hurricanes, and so there's a system in place of emergency shelters and there's a whole system in place should this happen. We've known for months that this eviction crisis was coming. It seems like there should be some kind of pre-planning to deal with actual people who are actually evicted and have nowhere to go. So can you address that?
Yeah, so it's a great point, Steve. I fully agree. And one thing, two. One is that the notice that landlords would be required to provide is not something that the landlords design, it's something that the city designs. Some of them in Boston happen to have specific offices related to housing for residents that actually were involved in drafting the notice. We don't have a similar office here in Lowell, but it's something certainly that through the manager's office or through the law office could be drafted. So that discretion would be with the city, not with landlords. The other thing is that these ordinances have the cities landlords are required to provide a copy of the notice to the city as well when a notice of quit is served. So there'd be the opportunity for the city to know, who's potentially facing eviction and be able to help to intervene and provide them with services as well. To your point, there are going to be people who lose their housing as a result of this, whether this particular motion and ordinance is passed or not. And I don't think our existing shelter capacities are really equipped to deal with it. There have been a couple of other motions. There's a somewhat related motion on the agenda this week relative to trying to figure out, as the winter months come on, our existing shelters are at reduced capacity because of COVID restrictions. So in the early months of the pandemic last year in the spring, the state essentially purchased full hotels and motels to house people during the colder months. It's not clear what the state's plan is for that again this winter, but I know a number of councilors have been discussing trying to locate alternative space within the city, whether it be city or state-owned space to identify to provide some sort of emergency shelter. So that's a part of it too. Again, I'm the state programs, the RAFT program, I read the article in the Globe today that you referenced, it's scary. These programs are just not equipped, even if the money is there, to process the applications and anywhere close to as fast as they can. But that's actually where the court process becomes incredibly important, because if a tenant has an application into RAFT and the landlord is in court trying to essentially kick them out onto the street, that's where a judge can step in and say, wait, we're not going to process this until we've had a chance to, RAFT has had a chance to process this application. And again, it's like it's a stopgap. It's not totally adequate, but it is the sort of thing where, people have to know. They have to know they can put in an application to RAFT, and they also know that they absolutely should appear in court. So if their application is yet to be processed, you can hopefully get a judge to step in and say, we're putting this on hold, work out some sort of agreement until, they've had a chance to apply to these programs that are there to help them. So again, we're dealing with literally the most stopgap measures, but again, it's, these things are certainly better than doing nothing. And I'm open to any other, suggestions as well that we could do to make sure we keep people housed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Drinkwater. Does anybody have any other comments or thoughts? All right, let's see what we have. So, whoops. I think it's alive. Hold on. There we go. Okay. So our next meeting is November 22nd, same time. That's a Sunday, 5:30 to 7. We debated within our coordinating committee about changing it because of the holiday and all of that thing, the holidays that we had pre-COVID. But again, we're going to just stick with the pattern so that everybody knows sort of when it is to keep consistency. So it will be November 22nd. We are still working through speakers. If anybody has any ideas, if there's either a person or a subject that they're interested in that is progressive and affects either themselves, the city, the state, we're kind of open to any suggestions. Also, Solidarity Lowell is on Slack. So you can join the discussion about the meeting and speakers, and also just in general events. We post things there. We post the meeting minutes from this and, follow-up information from this specific meeting. And that is #events on Slack. And I know Amy and Chris and Dee and Steven are really good, and Joseph are really good with Slack. I have no clue. I just say yes to the notifications when it tells me, and then I just read whatever it tells me to read. So if you have any Slack specific questions, any of them will be able to help you, and their information was on previous slides, but it's names@solidaritylowell.com. And also the other big thing that we do is we send out a reminder call and or text, and Chris with other help comes up with the script, and then we just divide up the list of members, and anybody is able to do that. It's a Google Doc, and instructions can be given as necessary, but for someone who is not technical, it is very easy to do. And it is also nice because it connects you with some people that you wouldn't normally talk with. So again, maybe open some avenues for conversations you wouldn't be able to have otherwise, especially in our sadly socially distant times. So I think that's it for us. Does anybody have any lasting comments, thoughts?
What do we want?
Patience.
Patience. When do we want it?
Now.
Thank you. I was thinking of that.
Don has an asterisk in the chat.
All right, Don.
Hi. Just wanted to give you a heads up that Christ Church United will be doing some rethinking about its objectives over the next decade or so. And part of that will be a survey instrument and focus groups. One of the things we'd like to find out is how the community perceives CCU and potential ways that we can network together. And if it's possible, I'm looking like the survey would be done in the first few months of the next year, and then maybe do a focus group with Solidarity Lowell, just to chat a little bit together and hear what people have to say about its relationship to Christ Church United, which is, it's been a historic and very good partnership. And I just like to see that that voice be heard within the church so that we could make our plans. Thank you.
Thank you. That sounds great. Yeah, and again, anything like that, any updates or things like that, feel free. You can email anybody that was in the slides, or we have the website and the Facebook, and we're very, not me personally, but us as a group, we are very technologically advanced. So I know we try to keep on track of all of the things, all of the platforms that we're involved with. So I think that would be great to start those conversations. All right.
Thanks so much.
So seeing.
One more thing, Caroline.
Yep.
The Galila Group, Greater Lowell Interfaith Leadership Alliance, is having its annual Interfaith Thanksgiving service to benefit the Merrimack Valley Food Bank.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the details in front of me, but maybe we could send them out in a blast email to the members. It's going to be in mid-November sometime. I can't find it at the moment, but all are welcome.
Thank you for that. I did forget to post that, so that's great. I can send out the I have the informational brochure that I can send out to the list. So
Terrific. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? All right. Well, I'm going to say good night. I want to thank everybody for coming and a lively, wonderful discussion, especially Councillor Drinkwater. Thank you for speaking and all of your knowledge on all of these various topics. I feel like we're in good hands. And yeah, so I just encourage everybody to keep up to date on all the different things that are happening with City Council. And again, the Lowell website is very friendly, and it has that little search box, and just put in whatever you need there. And Martha's shaking her head. But there's the minutes and contacting your counselors, and those pieces are there on that website. So feel free. I think that's it. So I'm gonna say good night, everybody.
Thank you, Caroline.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.